We are back. We are live. Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to be here with you today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's topic is just such a unique topic. I have been noticing a lot of things around the season, working with our clients and talking to neighboring people, business owners around things. In case you don't know me and you're new to our channel, I'm Margot Mastery, your Heartfelt CFO, founder and owner of Heartfelt CFO and Tax Services, where we promote proactive tax strategy and not reactive accounting. And I am so excited to talk about today's topic, what most CEOs realize too late during tax season. A lot of these things, just to talk about, have been gathered from working directly with CEOs. And even if you're not a CEO, it's just across time and space of working with different business owners that we noticed. And we want you to get in quicker so that this is not a hassle for you. This is more of a way of kind of like head on and let's get with it and not making taxes a villain. I have worked with business owners for multiple years, and my work has been a part of many different things. And I have known to be a person who replaces fear with clarity, helping you make calm decisions and building strategy that actually works. I work with mental health owners, real estate professionals has always been my core service offering of niche of clients to work from and has spin off to a lot of different things. Um, I want to welcome you all in today's topic and today's home. And we are going to talk today about the difference between wealth and chaos, which isn't income, there's structure. Sorry about that. So before we get into tax strategy, I want you to think of this of like walking into a house. So let's walk into your house and it's either there's chaos or we have tax strategy with wealth. How your finances are built determines how your business feels to live in. So when you come home from work, right? Or even if like you work from home, are you coming back to your house in chaos or are you coming back into your house feeling grounded, supported, feeling like you're fulfilled? What's really happening from that transition? Now that we go in, the reality from outside, things look strong, revenue is up, the business is growing. The reality behind the scenes, it often feels like, whew, taxes are creating a pressure. Cash flow is unpredictable. Profit feels unclear and decisions feel heavier than they should. What I find lately the most is around the decision making. And I'm going to tell you a story. So this morning I was reading an exchange with a client and he basically was asking the same question from a repetitive nature. I think it was about 14 times in different ways. And it's not like, oh my God, he asked the question 14 times. He couldn't make a decision. And this decision was laying so heavily on him, and it was hard for him to shift. What ended up helping with the shift was literally taking himself out of the scenario and seeing how we can look at it from a different perspective and putting ourselves in the situation as an observer. So let's think about ourselves at the ocean or at the beach, and we're watching the waves go by. When the waves go by, what happens? They just pass. And it's like as if nothing happened. Or did you ever have a friend who told you, like, oh, I'm going vegan now? Oh, yeah, I don't eat meat anymore. So I can't go for that steak. Like, what's the big deal? We went vegan. So it's the same thing like tax, stress, and money and business, right? We want to put light to the decision. We want to make a transformation. So then tax season hits, and that's when some thoughts show up. You didn't plan for it. You should have handled this earlier. I don't fully understand what I'm looking for now, or even what I'm looking at. Because sometimes people look at tax season and it's more of from a perspective of like have to and necessarily of like a push and a force, and it's not necessarily aligned on the system. And I say this to say how important it is to understand to align the system is that The more you buy into the tax law, the more you buy into the system of how your strategy and your sales is and your salaries and all these different things, the better it will serve you that it adds layers. So let's say when you decided to take a W-2 from your business, before that, you really didn't have a salary. You really were getting it from an outside perspective, or you were getting it from some other source, or maybe contractor way. But now it became a reliable source for your family. So that's like your place to step into of how you want to see things. Okay. So the core belief here, here's the truth that most people are not realizing too, is that wealth without structure creates chaos, and structure creates freedom. So now every time something happens that's out of a structure, that's where the chaos is. We have one client that we're working with, and there's a whole part to the accounting that actually evolved, and it's all chaos. And it's not chaos by choice, it's just chaos because it was never streamlined into a structure of the way things. So it's like this thing, this thing, this thing, no, one to the next, one to the next. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And da, 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 da. But it's only here right now. And the same thing with tax season and money is that that season, it's only here how long we want it to be there for. So tax season doesn't create the problem. It reveals the lack of structure that's really underneath. You know, I have this client list legacy. About that. Sorry about that. They come every year for returns. And I started to notice that when clients come for returns, what the nature is versus clients who are monthly. And with being in a tax advisory firm, it became really, really important to understand the distinction of the difference. You're coming in all year with the pressures of things that have been sitting and maybe multiple years. So imagine having that pressure from multiple years stacked with deadlines and things. So we want to look at that from an observer and say, do I really want to carry this backpack? How can I carry this differently? Or how can I put down the backpack and put this into structure? So what's been missing? We zoom out, there was no visibility, there's no tax planning, there's no systems, and decisions become reactive. We're starting to do things because of this, because of that. I have to say, so I'm working with a client around something, and he was like, can I just pay out the clients, the team on a certain matter? And you could do whatever you want as a business owner. But my answer is that then we created the proof that something was wrong versus really just shifting the process to maybe do it to not maybe to do it in a different way so that we're not putting the proof in what we did wrong. Now, these are the CFO shifts of subtle things that we can do that you get to elevate in the most best way with having a CFO on your team. So this is where I shift from observation to solution. And we go into financial clarity, clean books, real visibility, because you can't grow without the numbers. Mastering your numbers will never shoot you wrong. The next part is strategic tax planning. So we master our numbers, there's tax planning, and it's not something you first do in March and April. It's something that happens all year. Cash flow, the architecture of it, what gets allocated, what gets protected, what gets reinvested, so that the business actually supports the owner. This is the work that we do with CEOs, myself and my company, to stabilize the books, design proactive tax strategy, structure cash flow, and separate business and personal and build systems that scale. I always keep this basic line in there about separating business and personal, because there's always someone who is still, even at a CEO level, still doing things at the personal level versus completely working from the business level and letting that work from them. So instead of going to the personal line like down, we want to go up with better structures. That's where the proactive tax strategy comes in. And things that you're already doing will be connected to a law that will only elevate you. An email just came from a client this morning, $244,000 of refund. I mean, who's to say that if that came in the mail, like, wouldn't you be happy? It was like just over 244 and some change. It was really cool to see that email. So this is not about being reactive. It's designing the system that holds as you grow. What changes? Season becomes predictable, decisions get easier, stress decreases, and money becomes clearer. You stop reacting and start operating. We want to move you from reacting to operating as the owner that you are and just keep you moving. And in the vision, trusting the numbers, making the decisions faster, growth becomes sustainable and your business supports your life. So if you're feeling this right now, and it's not because you're behind, it's because something just wasn't structured yet. And I remember that in my life, it's that you don't need to earn more, it's about better structure. And before I go into this, years ago, actually, it was like more than years ago, it was like 10 years ago, a legacy client of mine, he would call me. He called me actually after the day I interviewed for his position. This was like years ago that, I was actually working in house with clients. And what he said to me, he goes, "Are you the girl that said I don't need to make more money?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Get your little butt in here." And I was like, "Okay." So the next day I went in there, and he's sitting with his father. So it was a legacy business of what passed down to generations. And he was like, "How do you see this? How do you see I don't need to make more money? How do you see that I can just do this?" Because he was using like the bank balance. He was calling up and getting the bank balance. His QuickBooks register was not even reconciled. So things were really just like all over the place of how he was operating. So simply just putting in our 9 foundations along with our 5 to 10 top strategies, it shifted things beyond your wildest dreams. And you know what happened when him and his wife were on vacation? His wife called me, not him. He did too in his own ways, which is text messages and things, because that's how, things come in all shapes and sizes. And his wife was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "You're so welcome." I didn't even ask why. It just her tone and her heart, you can just feel. So I want this for all of you, and I want to offer you a session with me where we can talk about your structure, your intentions around the finances, and really not reacting around income, reacting around filing, and help this be easier for you. And in real time, when things happen, let's make that process easier and easier so that as things evolve, we work together so that you have the business, the profit, the income, and things are evolving. Because more isn't better. It's streamlining with strong structure that's going to bring you these dreams and these different things that you want. And I want that for you. And I conclude this to say, just leaving this onto the screen, is that, lots of times I see people like holding back or doing DIY accounting. And I want to invite you all to jump onto the call so that we can talk about this, make it less scary for you, because that is my passion, that is my purpose, and I want to help you. So just like that client today where he got a refund and, now the services were beyond free and then some. And I do think that there's another refund check coming. So it was really, really cool to see. So I look forward to seeing you on the calendar. Let's make you money together. Let me be your CFO and lead you and take the step together so that you could be on the driver's seat and more and to come. Talk soon.